Okay, let's dive right in then. Today, we're taking a close look at something called usual. The sources we have describe it as a decentralized fiat stablecoin issuer.
That's right. That seems to be the core definition we're working from here.
And we've got a fair bit of material, articles, notes detailing what usual is supposed to be, its token structure, how it's meant to work.
Yeah, how it aims to function within the whole crypto ecosystem.
So our goal for this deep dive really is to cut through the jargon and just pull out the key takeaways from these sources.
Kind of like a shortcut for you to understand the essentials, the core ideas behind usual, its tokens, its governance, that kind of thing.
Exactly, because, in this world of digital currencies, understanding stablecoins is already pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But when you get one claiming decentralization, unique ownership models, well, that catches your eye, right?
It does. It gets interesting. So let's see what the material actually says makes usual stand out.
Yeah, okay. So starting simple, based purely on these sources, how is usual defined? What's the basic concept?
The material defines it quite clearly. A decentralized fiat stablecoin issuer. That's the headline description.
And beyond just, issuing the coin, what's its stated purpose, according to the documentation we have?
Well, it explicitly states a key goal is to redistribute ownership and governance.
Okay.
And it plans to do that specifically through its native token, the token called USUL.
Right, so that focus on decentralizing control seems pretty central then.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme throughout the sources, this idea of shifting ownership.
Got it. Now, the sources mention the protocol is built around 3 different tokens. It's probably good to unpack those.
Yeah, understanding how they fit together is key.
Let's start with the stablecoin itself. What's that called?
That would be USD0.
Yeah.
Presented as the stable asset of the whole system.
And backing. How is this USD0 meant to be backed according to what we've read?
It states it's designed to be fully backed by, let me check the wording, short-term, liquid, and risk-free assets.
Short-term, liquid, risk-free.
Right.
Okay. The idea being stability against the US dollar, presumably?
Precisely. To maintain that peg.
And it's also described using terms like composable, permissionless, transparent within DeFi. What composability mean here, practically?
That's a really critical point for any stablecoin wanting to succeed in DeFi. Composability means other decentralized apps, like lending protocols, exchanges, you name it, can easily integrate USD0.
Without needing special permission.
Exactly, permissionless. It lets USD0 plug into that wider DeFi world, which boosts its utility and adoption. And the sources suggest that adoption is, vital for the protocol's overall growth.
Okay, so that's USD0, the stable one. What's token number 2?
That's USD0 plus TE. The sources call this the USD0 liquid staking token.
Liquid staking token. So you hold USD0, you can stake it, and you get USD0 plus back.
That's the idea.
And why would you do that? What's the incentive?
The reward. By staking USD0 and getting USD0 plus at zero, you're rewarded in USUL tokens.
Okay. So it's a way to encourage locking up USD0.
Seems like it. Presumably to help with stability or maybe other protocol metrics.
Which leads us nicely to the third token, USUL. This sounds like the main event, so to speak.
It certainly seems positioned that way. Identified as Usual's native utility and governance token, it's presented as the key to really participating in the ecosystem.
And the sources stress its dual role, right? It's not just for voting.
Correct. The material really highlights that Usual acts as both ownership over the protocol's revenue and the governance token.
Ownership of revenue. Interesting.
Yeah, it's designed so holders are rewarded as USD0 grows and gets used. And crucially, the sources state this token is intended to be backed by real cash flows generated by the protocol itself.
Backed by real cash flows. That's a pretty significant claim. Let's dig into the specific functions listed for Usual. There seem to be quite a few. Governance control, for starters.
Right, this is where that decentralized aspect really comes in. Holding Usual is meant to give you direct power, managing the protocol, influencing key financial decisions.
And this isn't just abstract influence. What can holders actually control based on the material?
Well, they control some pretty critical parameters, like determining the types of collateral that back USD0.
Deciding what assets are acceptable.
Exactly, and their weighting too. The sources suggest this flexibility, this control over collateral, is important for stability and adapting over time.
Does it mention treasury management too?
It does. It says governance and the protocol's mechanics will let USUL holders manage the treasury efficiently. The goal seems to be maximizing the compounding effect of the assets held.
So holders are actually steering the ship, financially speaking?
That's how it's presented, yes. directing real assets, not just voting on rules.
Okay, moving beyond governance. The sources mention disinflationary issuance tied to TVL. How's that supposed to work?
Yeah, that's an interesting mechanism. It links the supply of new usual tokens to how much the protocol is being used.
Specifically, how much USD0 is staked.
Right, the total value locked, or TVL, of staked USD0, which is represented by that USD0 plus token we mentioned. So, as more USD0 gets staked and the TVL goes up, the protocol is designed to issue fewer new USUL tokens relative to that increase in TVL.
Fewer tokens relative to growth, trying to create scarcity.
That seems to be the goal, according to the sources. Creating scarcity as more capital comes in, aiming for a disinflationary effect compared to the protocol's growth rate.
So the token's supply dynamics are meant to align with growth.
Precisely. There's also mention of a revenue-based model. It aligns usual issuance with the future cash flows the protocol generates.
How so?
The material explicitly states the inflation rate of the usual supply is intended to stay lower than the growth rate of the protocol's revenue and its treasury.
Okay. So that's the mechanism designed for usual to capture value from the protocol being successful.
That appears to be the design intent outlined in the sources, yes.
And where does staking usual itself fit in?
Staking usual is how you actually activate those governance rights we talked about.
Yeah, you need to stake to vote.
Yeah, and the sources also say that by staking, holders receive 10% of the newly issued USUL tokens.
So a direct financial incentive for staking and participating.
Exactly. It's described as an incentive mechanism for long-term holding and active participation.
Okay. There was also a quick mention of a gauge mechanism. What's that about?
Yeah, it was mentioned briefly. Described as a tool to direct and optimize liquidity distribution within the protocol.
So like guiding incentives.
Seems like it. A mechanism probably controlled by UUL holders to decide where incentives should flow, maybe to encourage liquidity for USD0 on certain platforms, for example.
Okay, so pulling that all together, the usual token seems designed as the core. It grants governance over collateral, treasury, it captures revenue, its supply is linked to growth and cash flow, and staking it gives rewards and activates your vote. It's the ownership layer.
That's certainly the picture the sources paint.
Yeah.
It's presented as the mechanism for both decentralized control and value capture within this system.
The material also gives us a tokenomics snapshot, specific numbers as of November 14th, 2024.
Right. Helps give a sense of the supply and initial distribution plan.
So, token name, USUL type, ERC20, standard stuff. Total and maximum supply is listed as 4 billion USUL.
4,000, a large number.
But the initial circulating supply at listing was planned to be much lower, around 494.6 million.
Yeah, 494,600,000, which is about 12.37% of the total. That gap between total and initial circulating is definitely worth noting.
And it mentioned Binance Launch Pool details, too.
Yes, an allocation specifically for Binance Launch Pool, 300 million USUL. That's 7.5% of the total supply, with a listed start date of November 15th, 2024.
Okay. And looking at the overall distribution plan for that total 4 billion tokens, how does it break down according to these sources?
The percentages are laid out quite clearly in the material. Let's see.
Binance Launch Pool, we just said, was 7.52%?
Correct. Then there's an initial airdrop plan for 8.50%.
Okay.
Investors and advisors are allocated 5.68%. The team gets 4.32%.
Relatively small team allocation there.
Comparatively, yes.
Yeah.
Then DAO and ecosystem gets 7.50%. Liquidity provision is assigned 2.00%.
Right. And then there's the big one.
Absolutely. The largest slice by a significant margin is for community incentives. That's set at 64.50% of the total supply.
Wow, nearly 2/3. That's huge. That emphasis on community incentives seems like a really key detail from the sources.
It certainly stands out. It's presented, based on material, as a mechanism to really drive broad adoption and participation over the long term.
Okay, so let's try and connect all this back to you, the listener. Why do these details, these functions and numbers, actually matter?
Well, understanding the functions of the UUL token, as they're laid out here, gives you insight into how the system intends to work, how it plans to distribute control, how it aims to capture value, how it incentivizes people to get involved.
It shows you the proposed mechanics, basically.
Exactly. And knowing the tokenomics snapshot, the distribution plan, that gives you a concrete idea of the token's initial availability and, more importantly, where the rest of the supply is supposed to go over time.
Especially that huge community incentives piece, that tells you something about their stated priorities, at least on paper.
Right. It gives you a picture of the project's structure and its intended incentives, based purely on what this source material tells us.
So this deep dive, drawing only from these sources, hopefully gives you a clear overview: how usual is structured, who's meant to own it via US wall, how decisions and value are designed to flow.
Yeah, hopefully it helps you get a grasp on the key details without getting too bogged down in technicals that weren't in these specific sources.
Right. So to quickly recap, we've covered what usual is described as a decentralized fiat stablecoin issuer. We looked at the three tokens: USD0, the stablecoin, USD0 plus the staking token.
And usual, the core utility and governance token.
Exactly, and we explored the specific functions and the tokenomics of UGL governance, revenue alignment, staking rewards, all drawn directly from the material we had.
Mhm.
So here's something to think about, maybe. Considering that this UGL token is explicitly presented as representing ownership of the protocol's revenue and giving holders control over things like collateral and the treasury, what are the potential long-term implications? What might this specific decentralized ownership and control model mean for the actual stability and the evolution of a fiat stablecoin like USD0 down the line?
That's a great point. It's a specific design choice presented here with certain goals, but it inevitably comes with potential benefits and challenges worth considering, something to mull over.